Welcome to the Empowerment Show, a weekly podcast call-in show that's here to enrich and educate the community of beautiful Northeast Pennsylvania and its surrounding areas. Hosted by Kendall Stevenson.
Just push it up and down. Yep.
Is the mic good enough?
The opinions expressed on the radio program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Genesis Radio, www.genesisradio.com, Genesis Radio's owners, management, or affiliates.
Good evening, and welcome to GenesisRadio.com. My name is Kendall. I'm the host of the Empowerment Show. Empowerment Show is a part of unity in the community. We always start the show with a moment of gratitude. This is the holidays, and they should be very festive for a lot of us. Some of us are not so festive. Some of us have issues, mental issues. There is a mental crisis that's going on in Monroe County. So we just like to give a moment of gratitude and say thank you for the things that we do have. Today, I have two people on the panel. We have a school director. His name is John Gearhart. Please say hello.
Hello.
And on my other side, we have Ms. Hope Christman. Please say hello.
Hello.
So today we're going to start the show by talking about mental illness. And maybe we'll have you pick it up.
Okay. Do you want to start with the holiday itself? Let's talk
start
about
with the
that
holidays
because the
itself.
holidays are upon us. I don't know if you paid much attention that December 11th is known through Facebook standards or Facebook statuses.
Mm-hmm.
December 11th is the number one day of relationship breakups.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the holidays are coming up. So it's new relationships typically, and the breakup occurs because there's a lack of communication, and the couple doesn't talk about how are we doing the holiday? If I introduce you to my parents, I'm not ready for that. There's no commitment, so they end up breaking. So they end up breaking up.
Becomes a stressful
So
time.
yeah, absolutely. So it becomes very stressful. So I mean, that's not a specific mental health issue, but what the fallout could be absolutely is because people get lonely at the holidays. They want to, they want to be with family. They want to have a partner, and then over time, all of that stress, that depression can become chronic because again, it's a chemical, reaction in the body. But the holidays can be very, very stressful on mental health for lots of reasons. One is grief. People who have lost loved ones, whether it's the year of firsts, they call it, after losing a loved one, or it can be the year of forevers because the holidays are tough when you're not with your special someone. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was not just mental health, but what we can do to help ourselves and help our friends. And with grief and the holidays, one suggestion that I have that comes from the professionals, and I'm a social worker, and so it's coming from those vantage point, is to include the individual's grief in the celebration, to acknowledge the person who is being grieved, whether it's a place setting, whether it's an ornament, whether it's a prayer, but an acknowledgement, because then that lets the person who's grieving know that it means something to everyone else as well. So that's, I feel, one of the issues that we have with holidays and mental health. When we look at poverty and mental health and the holidays, that opens up a whole other set of issues. When you have families that are going to the food pantries and they can barely afford, the basics in life, to put food on the table, to put gas in the car, to go to work. And now, they're supposed to feel like they have to be giving all these gifts to their children because that's what we do as society when it comes to the holidays. And they feel that they cannot give that to their children. Their children who see all the other children in school getting that,
Right.
and that definitely plays a lot on mental health.
I tell you, when I was a kid, I can remember that it seems like a lot of people in the neighborhood, especially the parents, that they would not pay their rent so they could have enough money
Mhm.
to get their kids things to school. Let me ask you, John, the kids that go in your school, do you run into any kind of problems like that? Like where there's not enough, they don't get enough presents, or they're going through relationship problems because they're still high school, they're having relationships. Do you see any of that in the schools?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of kids now come from broken families,
Right.
or they come, and maybe simultaneously, or families where parents have to work 2 or 3 jobs,
Mm.
and so they're absent from the scene. Sometimes an older sibling has to kind of ride herd over the younger ones. It manifests itself in a lot of ways. Kids don't do as well in school. Truancy is a major, major problem. At one of our elementary schools last year, the worst school in the district, which is, I guess, good, but not good. Average attendance was 66%.
Wow.
A third of the kids, so on any given day, a third of the kids are not there. And sometimes it's the same kids over and over and over again, and they run into major issues. Sometimes they have to go to magistrates, they have to take action. And sometimes it's just like this intermittent, and I'm talking about unexcused absences. I'm not talking about somebody broke their leg and they're in the hospital, or for some other excuse.
It's
Grandma
extreme
died.
behavioral behavior.
Yeah, and
Problems with their behavior.
and we find that in the schools we have to. There's a lot more support that we have to provide to the community, to families, than was the case like when I went to school. I remember back when I was in elementary school, the nurse was there maybe 1 day a week. The librarian there 2 days a week. Basically, the principal was only there 1 or 2 days a week. Basically, the school was run by a secretary and a custodian who were there all the time, and then the teachers, and that was it.
Did you find it to be that? I know you were involved with the school system
Sure.
because you did coaching and you've dealt with a
Right.
lot of kids.
Right.
I'm just bringing the point out that the adults and the young adults, they still have some of the same problems.
And
so today we have some of the young adults, which you deal with on a regular basis because you're a school director. You've dealt with them because you deal with the coaching, social work.
Right.
You have a good understanding. So I'm trying to combine the two of them together.
I mean, kind of along with what John was saying, the kids, the family issues. There are different professions that we kind of have them as frontline. They're lay social workers. Like they have an opportunity to really have their eyes on people, whether like it's hairdressers, believe it or not, bartenders, and bus drivers. So our school bus drivers are the first line of defense when it comes to our kids. They see the kids getting on the bus in the morning without a jacket. They see the kids getting on the bus in the morning whose parent is screaming at them out the door, or they're crying as they're running out of the house. So our bus drivers are our first line of defense when it comes to what the needs are in our community, in our student community, not just in the schools itself, but in the community. And that's something that's really important, because if you didn't have breakfast, if you had a fight with your parent, if your parents are fighting with each other, and now you're expected to go to school and you're expected to learn and even just have a good day, even have a day where you can communicate with other people without feeling angry or depressed yourself. We need those frontline workers, and then they can report that back to the school, the guidance counselors, the social workers, and say, hey, I saw little Johnny this morning, had an issue with parents before they got on the bus. And it should be a group effort. It should be a team approach, just like it is in healthcare. It's a team approach. So in what I do right now, I work in hospice, and I've worked in geriatric psychiatry and adult psychiatry, and it's a team effort. You have the doctors, you have the nurses, the social workers, the chaplains. I mean, everybody. It's a team effort. So you need input from all the different directions. It's the teachers, it's the coaches, it's the lunch monitors, it's the bus drivers, to get all together and talk about this, like what are the best interests of the students.
How about the resources?
Well, I mean, all the way around, we could do better with resources, whether it's at the school district level. I mean, I'm certainly, not calling anybody out. I mean, we have, we were given a lot of money in Pennsylvania to put toward mental health resources in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And John, I mean, I don't know, as a school director, if you've seen that as a resident in my school district and somebody who's a social worker who watches these things, I haven't seen where that money is being used for programmings or for additional hires in our school district. I know that Pocono Mountain had a few programs that were grant related programs that they were working on. And we just really need to use those resources. The money came from adult mental health resources where it was supposed to go, and it came to students. Now, as the school districts, we need to make sure that we are putting that money into the students, which in turn does go back to the community. It really
A
does.
part of the problem is, you mentioned grants, because sometimes what ends up happening is you get a grant, you start up something, and then you don't have that continuing funding to continue to pursue that program,
Mhm.
which means then you have to go to the taxpayers and say,
True.
hey, we make the case, and there isn't anybody that I know that's like, yay, let's raise taxes.
Right.
I don't think there's anybody that fits that bill. There are efforts underway to at the state level, in the state legislature, in the General Assembly, to address mental health issues.
Mhm.
Having a mobile mental health unit here in Monroe County is one of the things that's being worked on, but also resources for not just schools but in the community writ large. Where, like in Carbon County, they actually have, if I'm not mistaken, a facility where people can go, like it's like going to an urgent care,
Mhm.
but it's geared towards mental health
Right.
issues, where you can go for outpatient
So,
care.
Right. It's a
or-
24-hour walk-in center for mental health issues.
Right.
Mhm.
And
I think I know the answer to the question already. So how are the resources allocated?
How are the resources saved again?
Allocated.
I mean, it just really,
In other words, what district? Why would his district get more money than your district? And does his district get more money than your district? In other words, Monroe County versus Pike County, who gets more money?
It does. I guess it would vary from district to district, and it's a matter of setting priorities.
Mhm.
It's also looking at the tax base that you
Mhm.
have. Pleasant Valley, where Hope is, the tax base is particularly weak. There's no industry.
Mhm.
There's really no industry in the West End, and as a result, they end up facing higher taxes on just any old house or
Right.
abode that's out there, as compared to some of the other districts. Although we have some of the same issues here because of a lack of state funding. Two issues that we are working on to get. The first one that's come up is charter school funding reform, and coming next year, I intend to begin laboring or lobbying, I guess is the word I want, our state senator. The state representatives have gotten it passed,
Mhm.
though regrettably not by the representative who represents the Pleasant Valley area. But nonetheless, they had and it was bipartisan. There were 20 some Republicans who joined in the effort. There were some Democrats who opposed, from areas of the state where they benefit greatly from brick and mortar charter schools,
Mhm.
which are really different than the cyber charters.
Not that I want to get off the topic of mental health.
Yeah.
I kind of want to stay on topic with there. So the stress of the holidays,
Mhm.
Money,
Mhm.
finances,
Mhm.
the lack of money.
Mhm.
Sometimes people who have a lot of money still come out and they're like depressed, down. And what do we do about that? How do we detect that? And once we do
Right.
detect it,
Well,
what do we do
if
about
I
it?
could just
Go,
jump
John.
in for just a second to jump back to that. Pursuing the resources is an important step in the process for seeing to it that, like, for example, we're not relying on grants, but that we're getting a steady stream of funding that we know that we can count on from the state, which is obligated by the Constitution,
Right.
and as well as statute, to certain levels of funding, which the Commonwealth Court has found that they have failed to do.
Right.
Now, that's a separate issue from the charter school funding. That's one pot of money, and then reforming the formulas that are used for providing resources to reduce the property tax burden, and also to provide a steady stream of funding, so that when we implement programs, when we have ideas, when we begin things and start things up and whatever, and discover certain successful programs and want to continue funding that we know that we have a steady stream. We're not relying upon, well, this might go away next year, so you
Right.
know, and that sort of bouncing back and forth, up and down. Yeah, it helps for a minute, but it's sort of like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Right. And then a lot of kids suffer because
Right.
Absolutely,
because they have the lack of.
Right.
because they need. I suffer from depression, and sometimes it gets pretty intense, and it's something I have to deal with every day. Some days are better than others. Some days are pretty bad, but it has to be this continual, every day, taking your meds, going to counseling, doing the things that you need to do to try to deal with that. It's not something that it's not like when you break a leg and it eventually heals and they take the cast off and you're just, you're right back to normal.
Right.
Mental health issues are much more
Complex.
complex and long lasting. It can take, sometimes you never,
Right.
it's a chronic condition
Right.
that you never really recover. You never really are like 100%.
Well, some people
It's always-
recover to it's kind of like an alcoholic. You're always going to be an alcoholic, even though you're in recovery,
Correct.
even though you haven't had an incident or a drink in 20, 30 years. But so some people can't take certain medications, and it actually helps them. It keeps them from being violent or what is that? Wellbutrin. That's one that the people use for depression and for PTSD. So.
And then, I mean, what happens is that it's a chemical breakdown in the brain. So that's what the medications do. They help reconnect the connectors that aren't connecting. So that's basically what the medication does. And for some people, eventually, like that could help the levels get to a point where they can stay level. But for other people, that might not ever happen. And then your body does get adjusted to a medication, gets used to a medication. So it's not like, I have a headache, I'm going to take Tylenol, and a year later, I have a headache, I'm going to take Tylenol. Your body does adjust to things, same way we do with antibiotics.
But a lot of these anti-depressant drugs, they come with side effects.
They absolutely do.
And a lot of the doctors don't. They should.
And that's where
But
they
don't
fail
tell
their
you.
patients.
They don't tell you about all the side effects. Let me ask you, with the kids that go to school. Now, I remember when I was a kid, when you had kids that were had behavioral problems, they would give them Ritalin. Is that still?
Yeah.
Do they still do that?
Yeah, Ritalin is still a medication that's used
Really?
today.
I don't think it's as widespread as it was 20 or 30
Yeah,
years ago.
Adderall, Ritalin. I mean, those are medications that are used
It
for.
turns you into a zombie, man.
Yeah, I think it's the sort of thing that you should use as, I don't want to say a last resort, but it ought to be well down the line. That there are other ways that you can work on behavior modification. Maybe the student needs to spend some time in supportive services to help learn how to control their behaviors and so forth. And there are, like I said, there are programs for that. Some students will have IEPs, they'll receive special education. I don't want to say special education, but they'll have times where they are separated out. So
Right,
that
and they
can
have
work
different
on
resources that allow them to.
So I tell you, I grew up in a
succeed.
school that was predominantly African American, and every time kids seemed to have behavioral issues, you had a classroom full of kids sitting there like zombies.
And I know that it's actually like a teacher cannot recommend to a parent, I think you should put your child on Ritalin. I mean, that's not legal to do that.
No.
So, and I think, one of the differences is that hopefully, let me step back a little bit. There are still family physicians that prescribe psychotropic medications. And if they're really good at that and they continue to get their education on that, and they're not just prescribing medications because the sales rep brought a whole bunch in and they get, goodies and extras, then that's one thing. I know that there are some family physicians, family doctors, practitioners that are very, very good at that because either they have that in their family and they really want to help out in that area. But my suggestion always now, again, working in the mental health field, is to go see a psychiatrist for psychotropic medications because that's all they do. I'm not knocking family doctors in the least. Some family doctors won't even do it because it's out of their scope, and they don't want to be liable. They don't want to be liable. But if you're seeing a psychiatrist for your medications, they're going to look at the different medications. They're not going to zombify you, in your first medication level. They're going to start you out at the lowest dose. And working in geriatric psychiatry, you want to start your patient at the lowest dose possible, and then you observe. You observe for a while, and it takes with some antidepressants, it takes a couple months for anything to kick in. So you can't just take it today and then tomorrow be like, oh, it doesn't work.
And you have to take it consistently.
You do. And it is a huge undertaking. It's something that you as the individual have to really stay on task with, and you have to stay on task with your doctor with that. If you're already suffering from depression, from anxiety, from social anxieties, you don't like to use the telephone to call the doctor, because you're having issues, or PTSD, any of those issues, you're already having them, you're probably not going to make that extra attempt to reach out if it's not working well. And you see a lot of people like these things on Facebook. They're like, hey, if you have depression and you need to talk to somebody, reach out to me. The thing is, if somebody is in like a depressive episode or a psychotic break, or however intense we want to get, they're not going to reach out because they are in the throes of it. They are deep in it. And again, going back to how can we help ourselves? How can we help others? We have to know our friends. We have to know our family, know our loved ones.
Look at detective.
We have to see, hey, you know what? You're kind of not acting yourself. What's going on? Is there anything you want to talk about?
You got some kids, like, let's say they feel like they have suicidal tendencies, or they need to speak to someone. Who would they call? Who would they contact?
Well, again, as Hope is saying, a lot of times they're not going to be the one to seek out the help. And one of the things that I have witnessed and participated in, because sometimes these are things open to the public, and sadly I went to, it was called QPR, Suicide Prevention, Question, Prevent, and Refer. And it's the purpose of the program is to enhance our awareness of those around us, to see the signs of things, because kids are not adults either, right? People are not going to necessarily say, I'm feeling suicidal today. I think I might just, there's things that they say, they become withdrawn. There's signs that you can look for. And I do have to say that in my district, our superintendent and administration has been very good about doing ongoing training. They did this QPR training with on an activity.
What did you say that the acronyms again?
QPR.
Right.
It's question, I think prevent. I don't want to misspeak, and refer, which is a recognition that none of us, maybe Hope is, but most of us are not qualified to address or to help that person, that student, to seek out the help that they need, but to provide the means to refer them to someone who can. And to make that effort, and that all of the students, the paraprofessionals, the faculty, the staff, the administration, everyone in the schools, yes, thank you. That is QPR Institute. They came to they did a program here at Stroudsburg High School. It was widely publicized, and there were maybe 15 people in the game. Now, what we want to do, we won't be able to do it this school year. Generally, what they do with this kind of training is they will do it in the school and then have the community that evening.
Right.
So the students will be like, they'll go home and tell mom and dad or their guardians or their grandparent, whoever they're with, or will tell them about this, or we did this today, whatever. And of course, the parents have been receiving notifications about it, but now the student comes home and they talk about it, and then it becomes a communal thing, because it really does require the entire community. It takes a village, It requires all of us to be more aware of those around us, and to pick up on things that the kids are doing or saying or not doing. If you see a student who's generally kind of gregarious and outgoing, but they seem withdrawn, they're disinterested, they're not doing their homework, they're not participating, they don't stay after school for soccer practice or whatever.
Telltale signs.
Right.
Right, and being aware of that, and then proactively reaching out to, because they're not likely to say, hey, I got a problem here, I need help. I know when I get into a depressive state and I just kind of withdraw, people think that I pushed them away, and they don't reach out because they don't want to bother me. And it's like, that's like, I have to say, that's like the antithesis of what
Right.
I actually need.
Right.
I need for people to like, I haven't heard from you. Are you okay? What's going on? Check on me.
And the one thing I can say is, I know kids, they don't like to reach out much.
No,
but
and they're not
we do have suicide helplines, and those are people that are actually picking up the phone saying, "Hey, I want to put a bullet in my mouth." Now, in the military, I mean, maybe you've never been in the military, but a lot of cats when they come back from war, they go through a lot of things, man. Like I knew some cats, they couldn't sleep in the bed for months. They slept under the bed or slept on the floor because they and things like wake up in the morning, you look at your surroundings that are around you, what you see in front of you is like fantasy. And when you go to sleep at night, that nightmare comes back to where you were. You're right back there, boom, 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 again. And you go through that every night over and over again. And there's times you just want to go, hey, I want to end it. So I know that people will pick up the phone and they will call. I just want to know who do you call.
I mean, 988 is the hotline, suicide hotline, and that's for veterans and everyone as well. But talking about the veterans in Carbon County, and we need to get better at this throughout all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Carbon County has the highest incidences of veteran suicides, and through the Penn Foundation, through St. Luke's Hospital, they have a veterans walk-in clinic, and they have a veterans program in Carbon County for Carbon County residents, because again, it was a grant program. So what they're looking to expand that with the numbers, that the
maybe
the
to
people
Monroe
that they've
County
helped.
too,
And I mean the whole state. The whole state.
Yeah, it should be to the whole country.
But it's absolutely, but it's a great program because it's veterans helping veterans, and you get like a veteran, like a buddy, a mentor. And Lisa Kay is the director of Veteran Affairs here in Monroe County, and I know she sits on some different state committees. And one of the things that she talks about is having like a mentoring program when veterans come out of the military, that they are trying to now come back to civilian life, and have a reentry program where they have a mentor and somebody that's working with them to kind of help them reestablish themselves and come back into military society. And I mean, those are programs that we desperately need.
Well, I know when you join the military, you are deprogrammed and then reprogrammed.
Right.
And once you're reprogrammed, it's you're not the same person you were.
No.
So.
And mental health in the military is becoming, more recognized.
Right.
And I think with not just the military, but in society in general, there is a huge stigma when it comes to talking about mental health. And for John to sit here and say, I have depression is huge. It's huge because even 10 years ago, like you just don't say that.
Well, John happens, from what I know about John is a very proud person. John is proud of who he is.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't really care about what other people think about.
Yeah, right, true. But
I think he cares more about how he feels
absolutely,
about himself.
Absolutely. But
when he looks in the mirror, what he sees.
Sure.
And that he's happy with the person that he sees.
But by John saying that, John's like, hey, let's talk about John. John's on the other side of the room. But by John saying that, we're on radio and we're on video. And by the way, if you'd like to call us, the number is 888-304-4401.
That's 888-304-4401. GenesisRadio.com. We can be reached, we can be viewed live on YouTube on GenesisRadio.com.
Awesome. Thank you. But by you saying this, John, there are people that are listening. There are people that would be like, you know what? Yeah, I have depression too, and I shouldn't be afraid to just say that. I mean, we set examples by how we live our lives. And if we can all just share information about ourselves in a more public way, it helps break down that stigma.
Yeah. Well, I decided about, it wasn't like I sat down and decided, it wasn't like that, but it came to be when my partner Ray and I got together, and it was at that time when I decided I'm going to lead an authentic life. I'm going to be me,
Right.
warts and all, and come what may. Because if somebody can't accept you for just the way you are, then they're not really somebody you need to be messing around with anyway. And that's why I'm always wearing something that shows that I'm gay. There are people. I got into it with somebody on Facebook the other day about it being all about sex. Being gay is all about sex. Well, no, that's just a tiny, just like it is for straight people. It's just a tiny portion of your life. It's like not that. It's not about that at all. And so, as a process, as a part of that process, my admitting to and saying, hey, yeah, I suffer, and sometimes depression it knocks me out.
Mhm.
I mean, I just don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. I don't answer my phone. It just knocks me out.
Does the medication you take help you out with any?
Some, I've been on now a third medication. I have a hard time to determine is it helping or not. Because you don't know what you would feel like that day if you weren't on it to compare to being on it. It may help to even it out just a little bit, so it's not quite so, the depths aren't quite so deep.
Right.
But I try to be very diligent about that. And one of the things in 2020, after my mother passed away, and dealing with that was like, I had to get out of the house. I started doing volunteer stuff, Meals on Wheels. I've been doing that for 3.5 years now. I had done it before, for 20-some years until my mother wasn't getting around. But to try to find things to get me out of the house, to get out, and this is something that my therapist that we're working with is, I'm very good about getting out and doing things out in the community for others, but I don't take good care of myself. And so my house is a disaster. I don't eat properly.
No, I get it.
I don't take care of myself. So that's,
Sure.
therapy and medication is helping
Right.
me to try to begin to address that.
Right.
And I don't mind to share that. It's
Right.
like, that doesn't make me a weak person.
No.
It doesn't make me a
No.
bad person.
Absolutely.
I'm just a person who's dealing with stuff. A lot of the genesis of this for me personally is losing my partner. He was 56 years old and died of cancer 8 years ago.
Sorry, Jim.
And then my mother was, almost 90. It was expected, and I moved in with her and took care of her in her home for the last year of her life. She had dementia. She could not be by herself. And so that kind of is the impetus of why I think, the depression's become like it has. But I don't mind. I really don't.
Right.
I think we talk about it and admit to it, and it's like maybe if somebody else hears that or sees that, it's like, hey, that's me.
Please
I can
enter
do
your PIN
something.
followed by the pound.
So just one thing that I thought of when you're saying that is you can't pour from an empty cup. I just shared that with someone that I was counseling with the other evening. If you don't have it going on or in you, you can't give it to others. And sometimes that's how we mask it, is by giving it to everyone else. And then eventually it does get to the point where we just can't do it anymore. But
You seem to be having people calling in. I can't.
I'm
gonna wait for Terry to come back.
Okay.
I guess. But listen, are they like in John's case? Are there any holistic approaches other than medicating himself? Like he was saying, he goes out
sure.
to do
I mean,
help with the people.
absolutely. I mean, staying busy is absolutely a great way. Exercise, any sort of physical activities. I kayak and I run, and that's my outlet.
You run.
I do.
How far do you run?
It depends on who's chasing me. No, I'm kidding. I actually, I was scheduled to do a half marathon this year, and I ended up breaking my arm, and I wasn't running for a while, but it'll be on the table.
When I'm steady going, I do a 3K every other day.
All right, good, yeah. I mean, it depends. Like I think like the furthest I've run in just one shot is like eight or 9 miles. But I usually try. I'll go out and I'll do like my 3 mile like regular run, and then maybe one day I'll do 4 or 5 miles. But then I do my 1 mile fast run. And if okay, so we're going to go back to the mental health. If that particular day I'm feeling like, oh, I don't feel all that wonderful, I'll do my fast mile on one part of my route that the majority of it is downhill, and I'm a downhill runner because I have very strong quads. You know, I don't have as strong hamstrings, so I have very strong quads. So running downhill is good for me. So then I'll have a faster mile time, and that'll make me feel better about myself. So I mean, you know, we have to all figure out ways to kind of take care of ourselves. Meditation is huge. Meditation is huge. Yeah.
Now, I have to apologize. I see that people are trying to call in. I need for Terry to be here so we can get hooked up with the phones. So I do appreciate you guys calling in. I know you guys have plenty of questions. Please stay with us. As soon as we can get through, we'll try to hook up.
But going back to John, we were talking about students and the LGBTQ plus population. This was the Centers for Disease Control, and it says that nearly half, 45% of LGBTQA plus students in 2021 seriously considered attempting suicide, far more than heterosexual students.
Yeah,
and then it says that Black students were more likely to attempt suicide than students of other races and ethnicities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Trevor Project reports it about
the
suicide rate or attempted suicide rate amongst LGBTQ youth, which is 14 to 24, is 4 times that of their peers.
I just want to know why.
And it is actually the leading cause of death in LGBTQ youth.
Why? 24. You know, my brother was gay. God rest his soul. He happened to die from AIDS here way back ago. But my brother didn't have all those issues like that.
Did he have an issue telling family that he was gay?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, I think so many kids today, even if they have parents that are super, super open and super accepting, really get frightened, nervous when they want to share that they're gay, that they're not going to. It
wasn't a big thing when I was growing up with like the gay. I mean, it's like every other person in their family, there was somebody gay. And we grew up in the projects. It was always somebody was gay somewhere. It wasn't a big thing. You know, now it's more of a big thing.
And then you look at the bombings in nightclubs and and hate crimes, and people are like, oh, you choose to be gay. Yes, I choose to be a target for people to try to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
there's a lot.
So that must be very, very depressing. Just
sure,
for some people trying to come out, or some people like, look, I look at it like again with the African American situation, we were afraid to do this or come out and say certain things because of the backlash that we would get.
Right.
So I could just imagine being gay, looking at the backlash that you would get if you said that you were openly gay. I mean.
I've as a coach, I've dealt with a lot of athletes over the years, and even working in schools. I worked in an Allentown school, Lincoln Leadership. I worked down there in their mental health offices, and you'll hear from students that their parents have made comments that, oh, if my child ever said they were gay, I would disown them, not knowing already that their child is gay.
Well, I've discovered in the last few years, since I started getting involved in the schools, students are far more likely to come out to their friends,
absolutely,
and to teachers and to other people in the school than they are their parents. And in some districts, they have imposed policies where faculty, staff, administrators, that if they learn that little Susie or Johnny or whatever said that they're gay or transgender or anything, that they have to tell the parents. And I'm like, not that they're adults, but if a child chooses not to tell their family, there's probably a good reason for that.
and that does not fall under the mandated reporter definition. So, I mean, if a child is a danger to himself or others, then yes, that's something that needs to be reported. If a child has been abused, has been molested, that's something that has to be reported.
Yeah, but a lot of people, they're going to say, well, the child has been molested or has been abused. They don't know that, but just because the kid is gay, that's what and they're going to make the assumption and they're going to make the report.
I just want to throw this in real quick. I actually did another radio program in this very room, probably two plus years, 2.5, 3 years ago.
2 million years ago.
2 million, 2 billion, trillion, zillion years. And there were three of us. There was a panel of ladies. It was with the sistership. And there were three of us. And, I'm 61.
Shout out to the sistership.
Sistership. Yeah, I hear Deb Kofer. She's still doing the voiceover for the at the beginning there. Anyway, there were three of us, and I'm 61. There was a young man in his mid 30s ish, and then there was a young lady who was at Strasbourg High School. And Jonathan went first. They were asking about our coming out stories, and so Jonathan was seated at the end there, and then it was me. So he went first. As he started speaking, I thought, this is bizarre to me, that as a gay person, I have a coming out story. Have you ever heard of a straight person having a coming out? Mom, I'm straight. Like,
Right.
How bizarre that for some period of time, and kids are tending to come. I didn't come out till I was 33, and I'm serving a parish. I'm a priest. I'm serving a parish in Detroit, Michigan. And I came out to my mother. She came out to see me and said, "What's going on?" She knew that I was having a meltdown. And then Jessica was, she's 16 or whatever at the time. And, she came out to friends when she was like 12 or 13. And she knew.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I was 10 years old, but I didn't say a word to anybody. Are you kidding me?
Right.
I'm just tired
And
of all the labels. That's what I'm tired of.
But there are still stigmas. You have people. I've been going back and forth with this one lady who is saying that the light blue and the pink and the white stripes in the newer LGBTQ pride flag is an invitation to pedophilia, that's the MPAs, which is the minority.
That's their stereotypes, man. They all got stereotypes.
But that's out there, and kids are going to be aware of those kinds of things. They hear things, they see things, and that's
personally,
why
I'm tired of labels. You get rid of labels. Everybody's a human being. We start from there. We're good to go. So if everybody's a human being, then all the stereotypes and all that stuff is garbage. Personally, I just think that all labels. I think they just need to do away with so many labels, man. It's not necessary.
There's a religious element to this. There's been an increase in sort of a fundamentalism in some of the evangelical Christian community, and who would say that someone like me is going to I'm damned to eternal damnation, burn in the fires of hell, whatever. I'm a deviant.
Brother, I'm a black man. Look here, we'll go together, right? Because as far as they're concerned,
we'll hold hands.
I'm going too, right? I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes, so my place, I'm probably going to hell too.
I'm a feminist.
So don't
skip
worry
along.
about that.
Yeah. I mean, but there's that element, and we've seen in the last few years in particular, but this is something that's been developing and growing for the last 40 years, of this kind of fundamentalism that a certain portion, and it's a minority of the population. It's a minority of people, but they're very, very vocal. They're very loud. Mm-hmm. They have big voices, and it's stuff that's out there that, and we're affected by it. We really are. The trans community in this country, and in certain places, certain states, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, a whole bunch of others, where they're facing tremendous, I'll just call it persecution, and people see that, and it makes you become a little bit afraid. You don't I don't want to say anything. I don't want to, I don't want to get caught up in that. I don't want to, and so it's understandable why people are still afraid, why they're concerned for themselves. I don't worry about my own personal safety for the most part. I live near Stroudsburg. But I have to say that, I have Black Lives Matter and Pride thing on my car. I'm very self-aware when I go to certain areas after dark. I'm just kind of aware of my surroundings, seeing who's around, what's going on, whatever, because there are people that you don't know what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Most of it's bluff. I'm not really personally concerned that somebody would attack me or physically assault me or anything like that. And verbal stuff, I've listened to that for decades.
Well, I can imagine how the
still,
kids feel.
That intimidation.
with the bullying. And we talk about that.
Exactly.
You know, I could imagine how it would make them depressed, and it would make them not want to come to school. That would
Absolutely.
probably contribute to some of the truancy that you have, and they would probably lash out, and they would probably have behavioral problems. You know. So
Well, and we also, I mean, things are different. Like you said, when you were young, things are different now. I remember the same student that you're talking about had indicated that, was having some anxiety over the fact that you hear a loud noise in your high school and you think that it's gunfire, and that's a trauma. That's a trauma. And, again, like my biggest thing was, got caught skipping school. So, I mean, now kids are worried about gunfire in their schools. I mean, so it's a lot different. We have cyberbullying, which is so much different because it's not like, the kid at school calls you a name and, and the other kids laugh and you walk away. Now they call you a name on social media.
yeah,
And
thousands
you have,
of kids look at it.
right, and liking it and commenting on it. And, our kids aren't strong enough, especially if they're already being picked on, if they, wear glasses and they're made fun of, if they're overweight and they're made fun of for whatever reason that they're made fun of, it just exacerbates it.
And then a kid with mental issues, he may not like that too tough, and he may come back with an AK-47
Absolutely.
because they'll ban the books, but they won't ban the guns.
I know.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So that's got to be a weighing on the kids' shoulder.
Oh, absolutely. And I was thinking about that before. Like what are the telltale signs? The telltale signs aren't always just happen overnight. It could happen over time. And as a parent, maybe you're not observing it because it is happening over time. Maybe like John was saying, we have, both parents are working 2 jobs and they don't have that ability to have eyes on all the time. It does happen over a long period of time. But as parents also,
I apologize. We just seem to want to take one for an answer.
Charlene, call back later.
yeah.
Okay, you can get them on the phone later. We do love you.
But as parents also, and I love my children. I have 2 wonderful adult children, and I have 2 amazing, beautiful grandchildren. And as adults, I am more of their friend. I am still their parent, but we're like besties. As children, I was their parent. I had to be the bad guy sometimes. That's my role. And sometimes, parents don't look at that as their role.
If she's got a question that she wants to ask you, she can text it, and then we can ask the question over the radio. Sorry for the technical difficulties with our phone.
And can we talk a little bit about my philosophies of
You have philosophies?
I do have philosophies about 9/11, and the impact it has on our mental health.
Right. Yeah, I know a guy. He's a really good guy, but when 9/11 came around, he can't go into the city.
Sure.
He cannot. Even to go to work, he had to do the commute back and forth from Pennsylvania. He wouldn't do it in the daytime. He said he would only work at night, and the city was quiet. And then when 9/11, 4th of July, he has to go hide into the house.
Was he in the city? Like, was he there when 9/11 happened?
Yeah, we sure were.
Sure.
Matter of fact, I was working for the phone company at the time.
Well, and the reason I'm questioning it is how would I diagnose him depending on?
Well, we worked in manholes, so
right.
right as soon as we were like cable splicers, so we were like emergency crew.
Sure.
And right as soon as the plane went boom, boom, we had to go down there.
Right.
So we got to see everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's PTSD, that's secondary trauma.
Yeah.
And one thing that I look at, and it gets questioned a lot of times because of the definition, is vicarious trauma. So vicarious trauma is it's a term that has typically been used for.
Just answer what's up.
What's up?
Why didn't you pick up before when I called you?
Because we're on the radio.
I'm on the radio. I'm doing a radio show right now. I texted you back.
And now you're on.
And now
Hello.
you're on.
But
Hello?
can I continue on?
Yes, please.
But so vicarious trauma is a term that's typically used for healthcare workers, child welfare workers, mental health workers, and it's because you deal with people's trauma
Okay, can I call you back?
because you deal with people's trauma on a regular basis. So you absorb part of that into you. And the vicarious trauma, then it has different effects on you as the practitioner. So I look at, and secondary trauma is typically someone that has been traumatized or has witnessed trauma also, and then they have effects from that, like they could have nightmares or they could have like relive it. So that's secondary trauma. But I look at 9/11, what happened on 9/11, for people that were there, not just the people that were there, we watched it on television. And initially we only saw the crashes, we saw the soot, we saw, but then eventually the documentaries came out and we saw the bodies coming out of the buildings and, the people jumping, the people falling. We saw all of that. And we all experienced trauma, whether we realized it or not. And so many of us, you look at sorry, I just wanted to write
Did you
these
see the
down. Of
buildings?
course. What's that?
Half the buildings that were downtown Manhattan, they were demolished. I opened the door. We walked up to the 43rd floor. We were at the Verizon building downtown.
Right.
We had to walk up to the 43rd floor. We opened up one of the office doors, and there was no office. It was just gone.
Yeah.
Smoke, ash. That's all you saw.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Couldn't see anything.
Right. But so like just some symptoms of vicarious trauma could be you're having dreams, you're having nightmares, you're reliving it, you're having obsessive thoughts over it, fatigue, illness, cynicism, irritability, reduced productivity. So think about irritability. Like we talk about road rage. Don't we feel like road rage has gotten way worse? It's gotten way worse. And I think it's because we're all like crabby and we don't recognize that we're crabby because it's happened over time. Because this is
Talking
something
about John?
no, I'm not talking about John, not today anyway. No. But it's happened over time to us. And we've become desensitized because we've watched that. And how do we keep it out of our brains? How do we keep it out of our thoughts, out of our nightmares? We have to compartmentalize it, as a friend of mine who's recently said about things. We have to put it away. But eventually that compartment gets full. And it has to fall out somewhere and sometime. And that's when we have the road rage. That's when we have the gun violence down the street. I'm not talking about just our normal gun violence. I'm like the shooting at cars and things like that. And I feel it all comes from secondary vicarious trauma. And it goes back past 9/11, but I feel like 9/11 really was a trigger for all of this.
And just my own opinion, I think television, the media, video games, they all play a part into that.
Absolutely.
That's just my opinion.
No, I agree.
Okay. John?
No, I'd have to agree with that. I think we've become a very short fuses. One of the other programs recently at my school was Rachel's story. Rachel Scott was actually the first victim of the gun violence at Columbine High School in April of 1999. She was, I believe, 17. I think she was a junior, perhaps senior. Don't quote me. And she was just outside the lunchroom when the gunman came in, and she was the very first victim. But she kept a journal that was found by her parents after the events of that day. And she had, I'll call them, they didn't use these words, but like premonitions that she would not live a long life. She was a great, she had studied Anne Frank. And one of the things that Anne Frank had written, and which Rachel Scott also wrote about, was that wanting to be a writer and wanting to be well known, though of course both of them died at a very young age, and one would think that you're a teenager and you die, you're never going to become known, and yet everybody knows who Anne Frank is, and a lot of people know who Rachel Scott is because of what she wrote about and what the way that she practiced her life. That there were examples of her. There was a student who was kind of an outcast, he had some physical deformities. He looked weird. You know, he was picked on.
Why are
And he
you
was
talking
this.
about me like that?
And were you a student at Columbine High School in
Right
1999?
there, I don't know.
I don't know. And she made the effort to reach out to him and talk to him. And he was right on the cusp of strongly considering, I mean, looking at what he could do to end his life.
Right.
And so the program really is about teaching all of us, but this is geared to students in particular, to treat one another with kindness. Look at somebody and understand that they've got issues, you've got issues, and not to just immediately jump on and make assumptions or to criticize or to pick on or to. And again, this is something that the administration brought. It actually was funded by a grant from the IU-20. And this too is something that we are going to want to do. It's another thing that can be done conjunction students and community, drawing everybody in and saying, hey, you know, we need to kind of take a second look at things. We need to kind of view our classmates, our fellow community members, our neighbors, and others in our community, maybe just with a little pinch of kindness, and how far that can go. Just one little act of kindness to somebody.
I tell you that's what this show is all about: unity in the community. Now, let me ask you a question. If somebody wanted to get into what you're doing, how would they do it?
I mean, you know, Kendall, I do so many things, so I don't know which one specifically you're talking
We're
about.
talking about mental health.
So, I mean, clearly you can go to school and you can get a degree. There are jobs in the mental health field that don't require all of the schooling that, you know, that I have or that other people have, where you can be a mentor. Like if you have experiences in life, and especially it comes like with addictions counseling and addictions mentors. So, you know, we certainly have peer mentor opportunities that people can share their information. I feel like the Big Brother, Big Sister program and volunteering in that capacity is huge to get into the life, you know, to help a young person have a more stable life. I am divorced, and my son was like 15, 16 when I got divorced, and my daughter was already out of the house, but there was no male role model there for my son. And I have a very, very good friend that I call my husband. He's a good friend. He was my son's basketball coach. And he just stepped in and like, you know, took Connor shopping for his suit for the formal and got him the cool matching socks and all that, and really took an interest in things that he did. So, you know, having that situation, if you're an aunt or an uncle and you can kind of step in and be a mentor, coaching is huge. For me, I've always typically coached girls. And that's because I feel, you know, like girls, especially at younger age, they're more timid. They need to learn self-confidence, and I teach that through sport. So there's so many different ways you can get involved. And I mean, part of it, like join the PTO if you're a parent, you know, and see what the parent-teacher organization is doing. Reach out to any of the mental health programs that we have. Most of them have volunteer opportunities. And just make yourself be out there. Just be out there in the community.
Well, I'll tell you after the show, if you want to give my man a list or any way he can look to see where we can people can look up.
Yeah,
give
absolutely.
information.
Absolutely.
And same question for you. How can people do what you do? I know that you got elected into your position.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about it. What do you do? How do we get there?
Well, yeah, I'm still kind of in the process of getting my feet wet with some of the things involved in the district, because a lot of things are public, but there are things that occur, that are done, that are handled, that are, you know, we're dealing with minors. And so concern for parental or guardian rights, and also privacy with minors. And so some of the things that I'm going to be looking into is like, we've had a number of expulsions. What's going on? You know, why? You know, as a member of the public, you really can't. It's just student number so and so is expelled. You know, and it's an up or down vote in the public meeting. They have to vote on whether to do the expulsion, but you have no idea what went into that. there could be mental health issues involved there. Sometimes it's vaping, sometimes it's violence. Sometimes, who knows?
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. I have no idea.
Okay, so our time is running short. We're just about up. Left my glasses home.
Oh, okay. All right.
Would
I got you.
please?
I got you. Okay, so this is a vigil for Christian Hall, and if you're familiar with Christian Hall, he was a young individual who was having a mental health episode, and was killed by the state police. And there are so many things that need to happen in order for that to be handled differently in the future. And unfortunately, sadly, that didn't help Christian, and it breaks my heart. But so this is the planned speakers are Faye and Gareth Hall, Christian's parents, Claudette Williams, who is a veteran, Jenny Ann Collier, who is a social worker like myself, Donald Leith, who is an attorney, Sharon Lavender, who is a commissioner of Monroe County, Jane Gagliardo, she is an author, East Stroudsburg Borough Council, and Izzy Smith Wade-L. I can't see it.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. State representative in Lancaster.
Waddell,
So,
yeah.
what's that?
Waddell.
Wade-L, yeah.
Mhm.
I have to make it bigger too.
Mhm.
So it is mental health. It's mental health advocacy, justice for Christian Hall, and it is going to be. Where is it?
Weird look, please.
Like, where is it? Where's the date? It's going to be
It's
Sunday.
on Sunday, December 17th at
Thank you.
3 o'clock, I believe. At
Is it the church right there in Stroudsburg on 7th Street?
No, it's going to be with the Assembly of God off of Wire Lake Road in Broadway.
Oh, out in my neck of the
Yeah,
woods.
that's where the whole
Pleasant
student
Valley
church-
Assembly of God.
Yes,
Okay, awesome. There it is.
I believe at 3 o'clock.
December
on
13th,
Sunday.
3 p.m. Good job, John.
Yeah,
Pleasant Valley
it's on my
Assembly of
calendar.
God. It's 1086 Weir Lake Road. For us Westenders, we call that Wire Lake. Broadheadsville, 18322. And it's join us for a memorial in honor of Christian Hall and help us bring attention to the 988-911 resolution and the need for more funding for mental health access. And it's just very, very true.
And a shout out to Maggie Hartman. Okay, thank you. This is the end of our show, and we'd like to say thank you for our guests.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for our guests, and peace. Good night.
Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to our